Quanell, the Biden family has had a wonderful week, specifically Hunter Biden. The only member of the Biden family that's had a bad week is his daughter, who lost the right to carry the Biden family name and has lost about, I don't know, almost 80% of her support. I think it went from $25,000 or $30,000 a month down to $5,000 a month. And of course, she's receiving no Secret Service protection because despite the mainstream media completely ignoring the fact that not only has Hunter Biden had a child out of wedlock and then lied for years and said it wasn't his child, that they're refusing to let this child have the Biden name, that Hunter has never spent any time with his child, that this child is being treated like she's not the granddaughter of the President of the United States, and no one is saying, what on earth? How disgusting. What kind of a pig of a human doesn't raise their own damn child? In fact, the media sits on their hand in silence, refusing to judge a member of the Biden family. And of course, it didn't stop there, Quanell, right? We have a laptop that the intelligence community, the social media platforms, and the journalistic community all aligned to lie to the American people and suggest it was Russian disinformation to protect his dad's campaign and ensure his victory over Donald Trump in the last presidential election. So everyone lied to America. People got deplatformed. It was absolutely disgusting. But that laptop, lo and behold, turned out to be the absolute truth, and it disclosed horrifying misconduct. Now, this week, he worked out a sweetheart deal with the federal government to suffer almost no consequences for crimes that usually put people in jail for or prison, federal prison, for years. I, as a defense attorney, don't do federal work because it's depressing. Because when the federal government charges you with a crime, you almost universally go to federal prison. Now, the media, in a collusion with the Democratic Party, is painting this portrait of, oh, he's pleading guilty to crimes that are never prosecuted. He's pleading guilty. He's being held to a higher standard.
What they're
because
not
he's the
saying, Charles.
I know what they're not saying. What they're not saying is he committed a felony. When they're never getting a pretrial
diversion. And they're not disclosing all of the crimes that he was linked to.
Of course they're not.
And they're not giving the details of what was all found on that laptop. Some of it, from my understanding, may involve child pornography and an incestuous sexual relationship with a member of the family. What they're also not detailing is that not only him, but his uncle were connected in using the Biden name.
Right.
To also sell access to the Biden administration and to the White House. But the American people at some point have to open their eyes and see. Donald Trump was prosecuted for the same thing right now that Joe Biden did with classified documents. President Pence, the VP, same thing, classified documents. What Hillary Clinton did, bordered on treason with her documents, but they prosecuting Trump. It's because they have weaponized the United States government's justice departments and the FBI to go after their political enemies and to derail any political enemy or adversary that they don't want to see be successful in this country. This reminds me of Latin America. This reminds me of some governments we've seen in Africa and the Middle East where they create trumped up charges on the number one candidate to win the election so that they don't win the election. To me, that's what's going on in America, and millions of Americans are waking up to realize, Charles, their country has been hijacked. Hunter Biden got the sweetest sweetheart deal of any crackhead I've ever seen. Show me one crackhead in the hood that got caught lying on the application, possessing a firearm that they should not have, not paying taxes on $1.4 million, and gets the equal to 2 misdemeanors, a slap on the wrist and a kiss on the cheek. Show me one poor person got a deal like that with the federal government.
Well, I mean, it doesn't ever happen, but there's a lot to unpack from your statement. First of all, Hillary Clinton, having a private server was most certainly a crime. In fact, the FBI director admitted it was a crime, but then said no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute this. However, for the most part, there wasn't any, she didn't have classified. Now, some of the emails contain classified information. It really makes no sense other than trying to hide stuff from the public for what she did. But it really was more of a technicality, and it's been greatly overblown by conservative pundits.
But to intentionally shred those documents in the basement with the shredder?
She actually destroyed hard drives.
So now tell me that's not a felony.
Well, it depends, right? If she had knowledge, and she claimed that there was
she destroyed them on accident.
No. But at the end of the day, it was clearly a technicality that Republicans were trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. And when you talk about Hunter Biden or Pence and Joe Biden as vice president, not as president, and the retention of documents during their vice presidency, the very huge difference between them and Donald Trump is that both of them conceded they had them, worked with the government, and returned them.
After Donald Trump had been raided, after he had been raided, not before, after he had been raided Mar-a-Lago,
right?
So they knew they had no choice. They better cooperate.
Made some really dumb comments to a number of people. And now I'm really disturbed by his lawyers providing information, because the attorney-client privilege is a big deal, and they've trampled it. I'm also disturbed by the selection of a prosecutor, a lawyer that lives in Europe, to return here and prosecute. This is an incredible partisan, right? People forget that he used a novel theory of the law to prosecute a governor, a Republican governor in Virginia, and that the Supreme Court, he got years in prison, prosecuted, convicted him, and the Supreme Court unanimously, there's all the left and all the right, overturned that conviction. All of his convictions, as a matter of fact. Because Smith is a rabid partisan, and he is hand-selected by Joe Biden to prevent Donald Trump from running against him.
And you see what he did at the arraignment? Remember when Donald Trump went for his first court appearance and turned himself in? He asked for a speedy trial.
Right.
The U.S. prosecutor asked for a speedy trial. How often do you see that?
No, you don't ever see it. In fact, it's always the defense counsel that are pushing a speedy trial motion. And this is clearly an effort to subvert the process. However, Donald Trump said and did an incredible amount of stupid stuff, right? Now, this is a novel prosecution, but Donald Trump said a lot of incriminating stuff. And throughout his, he realizes that he's been held to a different standard, right, from day one. And in fact, what the Obama administration did in the FISA court and all this effort to subvert the outcome of the election in the 2016 presidential election is disturbing. It's far worse than Watergate. But Donald Trump then got into office and told a great many lies. Oh, I'm going to give back my salary. I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm not. And then ran hundreds of millions of dollars through his own businesses of taxpayer dollars, right? And spent money wantonly, but did very little for the working class American people that support him. I'm no fan of Donald Trump, but this prosecution that he's looking at 400 years in prison is absolutely absurd. Well, on the flip side, the laptop disclosed horrifying influence peddling. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I don't like Donald Trump, I don't like Joe Biden, but I really don't like corruption, right? And it's very clear. I mean, they were trying to use coded language, but infantile coded language about the big guy and taking 10% for the big guy and this and that. Of course. And you talk about, I haven't heard anything about child pornography. I do know that there seem to be inappropriate photographs of younger children in the family dressed and laying and all that, but I don't know about pornography, and I don't know about incest, but I do know it was very clearly disclosed.
Remember, the sister-in-law.
Right, it's very clear, not just the sister-in-law, but a relative of the sister-in-law. And in fact, there was some allegation, some evidence that he instructed the widow of his brother that she needed to get an HIV test for some reason based on sex with him. And it was just really profane. All the nude pictures of him, his behavior is so awful.
And we forgive that as a government.
Well, when you think about it, if they had a fraction of this, right, the contrived story about Donald Trump liking golden showers from Russian prostitutes, which turned out to be a complete fabrication. None of this is fabricated, right? His behavior is abysmal, and what everyone says is, oh, that's the son, that's not the dad, but there's tremendous evidence that the dad was involved. But more importantly, people tear apart Trump's sons all the time, and what we're seeing is right-wing media outlets, right, paint one portrait, and the mainstream legacy journalism community paints another portrait, and neither of those are accurate.
So who can the American people trust in the media?
Well, I think they
in the mainstream national media outlets, do you feel comfortable saying to the American people, you can trust this media outlet?
Well, I don't think you can speak holistically about any outlet. Like, I think you absolutely can trust that me and you are giving our honest opinions. We might be wrong about stuff.
But remember, we said national media outlets that weigh one political version. CNN, take CNN. Well, they have a mission to destroy anything Trump, and they have a mission to promote any Republican that appears to be lenient and less conservative and non-threatening. Fox does the complete opposite. So I'm asking, what media outlet can we say we're not being misinformed, we're not being ill-informed, and we're no longer uninformed from watching that media outlet?
Well, I think what I do to prepare for my radio show and for this is I try to consume across the spectrum, from the Huffington Post and Mother Jones all the way over to Breitbart, okay, and then the whole ideological spectrum in between. Because I think you, as an American, need to consume as much information. And I think the most dangerous thing is when you just rely on the commentary of people who make a very good living by inciting people and lying to people. And we see this whole Peter Hotez, a local physician who has done non-patent, open source, non-US vaccines. Those aren't ones that you make money. The pharmaceutical companies don't make money. Dedicated his entire life, right? He's a doctor and a PhD. And I stridently disagreed with him on the mandates for a vaccine that doesn't stymie transmission. I stridently disagreed with him on the lockdowns. I think it's disgusting, right? But you can disagree with someone without lying about him, right? And what we've seen is Elon Musk, RFK Jr., and this whole tidal wave. I was watching a chiropractor who was calling himself a doctor trying to take down Dr. Hotez, right? Well, I mean, we live in an age of misinformation, because misinformation is easily monetized, right? If you say stuff that pisses people off and makes them angry, then people won't agree. And I have so many people that agree with me on one thing but hate what I say on another thing. Well, I don't care, right? Because I don't have to make my money living doing this.
So who can the people
But you can't.
trust?
You have to. You got to trust yourself. You got to investigate every issue. Like this Hunter Biden deal. But it's the truth.
That's
this Hunter Biden
Charles,
deal. Okay.
That we've come to that point in America where we can only trust our own minds now when what we read.
Well,
we can no longer believe that media outlets are calling it based on the facts straight down the middle.
Well, I think somewhere like that in Texas, you said national, but in Texas, the Texas Tribune is a wonderful, journalism-driven, nonprofit publication that really, most people are unfamiliar with it, but if you have questions or concerns about Texas politics, that's where everyone should start, is the Texas Tribune. But at the end of the day, we've monetized incitement, we've monetized outrage, we've monetized anger, we've monetized the click. And what the venture capitalists that run the world have discovered is that a click is much easier to get with a lie than it is the truth. And this Hunter Biden thing, when you look at, so the mainstream media is pushing this narrative, like the Associated Press had an article yesterday, talks about, oh, no one's ever prosecuted for this type of gun crime. No one's ever prosecuted.
And we both know that's a lie.
Very few people are prosecuted for
that's
misdemeanor tax crimes. But the truth is that he didn't commit a misdemeanor tax crime. He committed a felony tax crime, and they're allowing him to plead it down to a misdemeanor, right? He failed to report. But there's a bunch of other issues. See, once he enters a plea, there's something called jeopardy, right? Double jeopardy is prohibited by the United States Constitution, and the jeopardy attaches, right? So it's not just the gun crime, which they have him stone cold on. They have him stone cold on lying about his drug use to get a firearm. Remember, the firearm was ditched in a trash can where a kid could have got it and killed somebody, killed themselves. That's 10 years in prison he should be facing. And he's doing a pretrial diversion. The only time I've ever heard of a pretrial diversion in recent history used by the federal government was for the terrorists trying to burn federal courthouses in the Pacific Northwest, but they were anti-fascist fascists. So instead of like in January 6th, we're, hey, I think they should all be held to account. You can't try to subvert the outcome of the election. You can't storm it. But let's hold everybody to account. Everybody that stormed stuff and rioted and did stuff, but we're not in America.
If what you're saying is the facts, and I'm not saying they're not, Charles, our government's been hijacked. Our media outlets.
No. Our government was never for us.
Totally
you don't think JFK,
totally agree.
You don't think the CIA killed Kennedy?
Our media outlets, that's another discussion, but our media outlets have been hijacked by the super rich also. We are living in a state and in a country now to where what we mocked third world countries for as being undeveloped nations, undeveloped governments, corruption all throughout the government, corruption all throughout politics, is now taking place in front of the whole world right now in America. When you look at Ken Paxton's wife refusing to recuse herself from that tribunal, that committee that's going to hear his impeachment, whether he should be permanently removed, she's now going to stay and give a casting vote. That's unheard of. It's unprecedented. It's absolutely no transparency to it. It's corruption. When you see Hunter Biden, you talk about the plea agreement, but they also gave him a deal, Charles, that for all the other crimes,
Right, it all
they're
is
looking
extinguished and jeopardy attaches.
at,
He can't
all
be
of the
prosecuted.
crimes that they were looking at. Who in that? You practice criminal defense. You're a defense attorney. Name one person you ever met or helped or worked for or a client you ever heard of got a deal like that.
Well, I've done that before, the plea bargaining agreement.
On that level?
Well, probably more serious crimes, where you say, look, if I take this plea, all of this other stuff goes away, right?
Uh-huh.
But the problem is,
On the federal level.
but here's the thing.
On the federal
I
level.
don't do federal work, because federal work,
Because you and I both, that's not going to happen.
everybody goes to prison.
Only one got a deal like that was Sammy the Bull against John Gotti.
I mean, it really is disgusting, right? It really is disgusting that the media is behaving so collusively with the
Yes.
Democratic Party in painting this incredibly false portrait of the Biden family corruption, the Biden family influence peddling, and the depravity of Hunter Biden. In fact, the president made comments the other day, earlier in this week, about how proud he is of his son. And
You saw that?
And that, you know what that is? That's an
You saw that?
enabling. That's an enabling parent. You know what he should be doing is putting a foot in his son's ass. But he's an enabler, right? And what we have is this child, this man child. He's in his 50s, that has spent his life engaged in widespread depravity. And I'm all for
And
individual
eating off of
liberty
his father's
and
name
make it right,
and selling access
he is
to his father's
selling
administration.
access to his father for millions of dollars, of which it seems to suggest his father is reaping the benefits of, and that it would be very easy to establish, but the government isn't. Right? We have a whistleblower on the IRS investigation that said the entire investigative team was gutted. And then all of a sudden he has this plea agreement on a misdemeanor. And I promise you, if you'll remember, during the Trump administration, many of his, inner circle was targeted for one acting as their unregistered foreign agent, which is very clear that that's what Hunter Biden did, for not paying taxes, which is overwhelmingly
he got immunity,
clear.
man.
Right.
That was
And
a hell of a deal, brother. I'd never seen one like that.
Well,
Never.
It's really designed so Joe Biden and mainly the collusive American media can go to the populace and say,
it's
oh,
over with.
there's
It's
been
nothing.
accountability. Oh, he took responsibility.
nothing.
And in fact, they're going even further with that lie by saying not only did he take responsibility, but he's taken responsibility for something he shouldn't have had to take responsibility for, blah, blah, blah. This is never prosecuted. And that is just the media and politicians lying to us. Now, the problem is that the conservative media, they lie to us about all kind of crap all the time. So it's kind of, you mentioned it. Who do you trust? Well, again, trust your friends
I'm going to tell you
that
what's
are
happening,
educated.
Charles.
Trust yourself.
And remember, I said this on FaceOff. America's headed for a civil war.
I don't think so.
I believe so. I believe that the level of distrust in our government is going way beyond racist now. Every race in America now, I believe, is suspicious and has mistrust of the United States government, its officials, and its elected officials. I believe that at least the majority of Americans in this country, no matter what their race is or class, believe that the government has been weaponized to go after political adversaries. And we can't trust what's taking place in this nation anymore. The people are getting fed up, Charles. See, January 6th was a telltale of what was to actually come if America did not change and go a different direction and drain the swamp and give the government
I
to
couldn't
its
disagree
people.
more. So January 6th was built on this lie, this grift of the stolen election, right? Now, Donald Trump knew the election wasn't stolen. He knew that he lost. But he saw it as an opportunity to take, it turns out to be hundreds of millions of dollars from gullible, stupid people.
He didn't need that money.
Yes, he did.
He saw his opportunity to try to get reelected through the court system by
But
having
that's
those
not an
votes
opportunity.
nullified.
What the outrageous comments that he made that day, the outrageous comments that other people made that day, and the outrageous behavior of people that assaulted police officers and stormed the Capitol, it's all horrible, right? But it's not indicative of this coming civil war. It's indicative about how gullibly stupid so many Americans are, right? And how social media has given them a platform for their lemming-like stupidity, right? It's just like on the left, all of those that applauded the rioting and burning and attacking until it happened to them, right? Of the social justice protests turned into riots of 2020. I mean, at some point, we just need to start having honest conversations about all of it. But do I think we're headed to a civil war? No.
I would like to see Fox Face Off do a poll with two questions. One, and ask this of everybody in the country, no matter their political affiliation. Do you believe that the government is trustworthy? And do you believe that there's corruption within the United States government at every level?
But
one.
Quanell,
Two.
You're ignoring history.
Two, but also, I want them to raise this question. Do you believe that the current political climate in America, based on what's happening in government and politics, do you think that America's headed toward a civil war? I would love to see the question raised.
Okay,
because I believe it
that
is.
Question, but the problem is
Distrust
really
is at an all-time high.
It's not really. The only thing that would establish is the gullibility of people who read social media that is just designed to inflame them. The algorithm is designed to incite them to obtain engagement.
And that's successfully taking place.
And we're all being manipulated, and it's the smart person that refuses to be manipulated. But the truth is that since the founding of America, money has always played an outsized role in who gets to govern us in this republic. And that since the founding of America, there's been a large contingent of people that didn't trust it, and they shouldn't trust it. None of us should trust our government, right? But that's why we have all these fail-safes built in the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights.
And what happens when the majority of the people in the country no longer trust the government?
What
happens?
What we need is to demand actual austerity in our government, who is taking, the Revolutionary War was fought over a British crown taking far less than our government per
taxation without representation was tyranny.
But it was a much smaller amount of taxation on their gross income than we experience as Americans, especially small businessmen like us. Or you're paying over 50% of your income.
That's right.
And so we live in this America that does very little for the participatory, right? It does a lot for the super rich who don't really participate. And it does a lot for the people that either can't or won't support themselves.
And that's a recipe for civil unrest.
But it
that's a recipe
No, what's the recipe for civil unrest is activists, professional grievance people who just sit there and lie. And that's the right and the left, right? The fake grievance of the left that still, if you were to have the radical position that, hey, maybe people with penises shouldn't play sports designed for people with vaginas, or you take, then all of a sudden you're a transphobe, or you take the radical position that, hey, maybe our government shouldn't squander so much damn money. Oh, well, then, you are a capitalist and you don't understand the need for the. But the thing is, we're not having honest conversations because no one cares to be honest because there's no money in honesty, right?
Well, look at Texas. They were just talking with Texas a few months back, and several other southern states were having these discussions about seceding from the union.
It's not going to happen.
But they were still talking about
in fact, it would be
openly among elected officials about seceding from the union, and a poll was taken. Okay. And in that poll, over 51% agreed that succession would be a good thing. Well, and you're going to tell me America ain't headed toward another civil war?
I don't think they are, and those are just a bunch of stupid people clicking stuff because they don't understand it. And I've kind of lost my patience with stupidity. Right now, as we have Anthony Blinken in China saying we don't support an independent Taiwan. And I know the one China policy has been technically what America has taken for decades. The truth is we have all, even Joe Biden in 2021, have all supported Taiwan not being overtaken by the despotism of the Chinese government.
And signed an agreement that we would defend them.
But now we're on bended knee, right? And right now, if America were to split up, China would become the unipower.
That's right.
And their authoritarian style of governance would take over. But I'll tell you, Quanell, I was just in Budapest, right? And I was walking around Budapest, a massive city, from about midnight to about 2:30 a.m. by myself.
In Budapest?
In Budapest. Oh, you say that. Incredibly safe. There were women in miniskirts walking by themselves, old ladies with canes walking by themselves on the darkest roads. There is no crime in Budapest. It's absolutely safe. The public transportation, you see people just getting on it and riding it, right? It doesn't happen in Houston, right? No, our public transportation system is just a rolling homeless shelter. You would never see a single woman at 2 a.m. walking by herself in a miniskirt unless she's walking the track and selling herself, just safely walking home, right? Because we are destroyed by criminality, right? You would respond, well, there's not a lot of freedom in Budapest. Well, it sure felt like freedom. It felt like a country that was designed to protect the law-abiding and the participatory. What we have fallen into in the last 7 or 8 years is this country that is designed only to protect the interests of the super wealthy, who all have private guards, politicians, who all have public guards, and the criminals, the concerns of the criminals, right? And I am a criminal defense attorney. I believe that if the government's going to rob you of your liberty, they need to cross their T's and dot their I's. But I'm also a former police officer who tremendously believes in public safety. And right now, we are telling American citizens you should pay more and have less, and that you shouldn't expect the government to maintain public safety. And when the president's son, the damn president's son, is a rabid drug user who no one's saying, hey, you know, it's really disgusting, Hunter, that you don't have a relationship with your daughter. It's really disgusting that you fought her having the Biden name.
And they
it's
don't
really
talk about the
disgusting.
woman being a stripper.
Well, it doesn't matter if she's a stripper.
That he met,
has nothing to do
that
with
he met
but
in
none
the
of that
strip
matters.
club
It's his
and was using
child.
cocaine with the woman.
Okay, but it's his child.
Of course it's
right?
his child,
and
who the grandparents pretend don't exist.
What is wrong
who
with
the
the
grandparents
media?
pretend
No,
don't
it's
exist.
disgusting. What is wrong with a media, a legacy media, that acts like it's okay to abandon a
we
child
don't have that
because
anymore.
of politics?
Because we don't have that level of accountability
what,
in the press
what is
anymore.
wrong with a media that tries to paint this portrait that, oh, he is paying a price, he's paying a higher price than other people would have to pay? It's all just a grand lie, right? And at some point, whether it's Donald Trump lying to America or Joe Biden lying to America, maybe Americans, the many millions of lemmings in America, should stop listening to liars, right? Stop listening to the people that make their living by lying to you and try to figure out stuff. There's stuff. As a criminal defense attorney, I look at juries and I try to convince them not to believe their lying eyes, right? And, you know, some of my clients are innocent, but some of them are, you know, some of my historic clients, all my current clients are innocent, but some of my
Okay,
historic
now we're
clients
going to end on that
are
note,
guilty.
because now he lied.
But the thing is, your
Now
job is to
he's
convince
lying.
people to believe
Ladies
lies,
and gentlemen,
and it's ridiculous.
We want
need
to
to
thank
stop
you
believing
for watching
lies.
Face Off faithfully as you always do.
I am Perry Mason.
And Charles has just
Charles,
snitched on
it is
himself.
Charles Perry Mason
Thank
Adams.
you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for watching Face Off. Please tell others to watch also. We thank you.